Hello and welcome to another installment from my field. Today is all about making compost and different materials and different methods than just in a compost pile like this. This particular pile is basically ready for enrichment, and I'll show you what form that enrichment will take a little bit later. I'll need this bay emptied anyway, because in here will go a fresh batch of hot compost, and then I should be having this bay over here, which is full of maturing compost, which is now having the fungal process, and this one here, which is on the last stages of the hot compost. Both of these piles need enrichment, because even though they can be classed as compost, they're not magnificent compost full of fertility like I want. So how am I going to do that? Well, that involves this one over here. Now this is something I just put together. It's basically inspired by Terry, his temporary compost. Now it bears no resemblance to his whatsoever, but it's the same basic design. It's a bed for next year that hasn't been developed yet, and I'm just going to be putting the material from there in here, because it's all temporary built, nothing spectacular whatsoever, and that will hold a lot of that compost plus this stuff. Now, as you may well know, I make my own cider, and this is crushed apples, which is fairly dry but not perfectly dry, and I've got quite a lot of it. I've used this stuff before with the sort of material that I've got over there, and by the time spring comes, this will be perfectly rotted down with that compost and have quite a magnificent start to the year. Something I have tried, but inspired by somebody else, Ziggy, and that is builder's bag compost. Now this is just wood chips, poor wood chips, and I'll show you that in a minute, and this crushed apple, just mixed roughly together, and it's been that temperature for best part of 10 days now, and I'm going to see if I can make half decent compost. Probably not really compost, much more of a mulch rather than anything else to go over the top, because it'll all be needed in a builder's bag. And we'll see. This is the wood chips I have available. It's very poor. It's mostly conifer, a lot of conifer material rather than just wood chips. So I'm actually not really sieving this down, because underneath here it's very wet, and the wet stuff doesn't go through the sieve at all well. Just as a side note as well, that's grass clippings in the bottom for no other purpose than to hold in the weeds whilst it's still a bed. That will compost down lovely. The plastic lined pallets is from a mattress delivery this week, so recycle the waste and get some use out of it rather than just chuck it in the heap, as is this here, which is white goods plastic that's lasted rather well. Everything can be reused if we really want to. Hello and welcome back. It's the next day now, because the footage I recorded of filling this bay didn't work. So let's cut a long story short. The layers that I put in here of fairly finished compost and the apple remains was just to emphasize that once again, that I'm not putting in layers, I'm trying to mix up the two combined. There is some dry material in here that isn't so well broken down. It's all gone in, it'll all rot down. What will happen now is that vegetable remains will go in here, like I've done with the cabbage over there, and this will just be built up to the top or as high as possible, possibly with the remains of that hot compost once it's finished, and it will provide a steady storage until spring, and I will fill with as much vegetable matter as possible. So what will go in here are things like squash and pumpkin stems, comfrey leaves, and this sort of thing. What won't go in here is anything with seeds on. That will be reserved for the hot compost, because this, the aim is not to heat this up. The aim is to let the worms go to work, to the apple remains to rot down, and this to provide beautiful compost by the time spring that's nutrient rich. The compost has still got a fair way to go. I did see a lot of woody remains left in this, which I was quite surprised about, because this compost has been going since since May, and I was a little bit surprised how backward it was, but the majority of it is ready to get on the gardens. But what I want is 100%, and I want it in a lovely, great condition. And what I'll do is I'll keep on piling these greens on, and then as that other hot compost completes, I'll then put another layer on up to the top, and that will be left in like a clamp, I guess you could call it, until the spring comes, and then off we go again, another year. Right guys, thank you very much for joining me. There's been a paucity of videos lately from me, purely because at home I'm doing the house renovation, finished the upstairs with the bedrooms. Next week the kitchen refit starts. In between time I've had a couple of weeks which I haven't been doing much, but it's apple and cider making season, which is pretty full on. I've come to the back end of that now. Really, there's a bit more to do, but there's a natural break in what we got to harvest, and I've got a chance to come up here and actually do some work, which is rather nice. Until next time, keep well, and I'll see you on the next one. See you later guys, bye bye.